But the challenge is, if you don't start getting prepared now, you're going to get caught in a reactionary cycle where you're just constantly catching up, putting out this fire. You're dependent on those systems. So if you haven't started yet on getting prepared and building this type of homesteading life, like I said before, now is a better time than ever. And there's a lot of small steps and stuff you can do that'll build momentum, build that confidence, where it's only a matter of time before you turn around and you're like, wow, we've actually accomplished a lot. And I feel a lot more comfortable where we are going into this crazy future. Well, the crazy present, I should say.
Would you survive a year-long power outage? It's more likely to happen than you might realize. Unfortunately, our country has a major weakness, our power grid. If you're beginning to prep and learning about this for the first time, you want to turn to Dark Age Protection. And each copy of Dark Age Protection comes with 4 bonus books for free: Bulletproof Bug Out, Water on Demand, Produce Oasis Gardening, and Off-Grid Independence. Get your downloadable copy now by going to darkageprotection.com or click on that link in the description box below. And now on with the video. And good afternoon, everyone. Appreciate you joining us again. I have John Bush here, LiveFree.Academy creator. Now, this really resonates with me, this workshop that they're going to be doing on the weekend here, Homesteading on a Budget. And I've had so many of you write in and say, please give us more solutions to the problems, because I'm good at talking about the problems, talking about winter gardens sometimes, different plants you can grow, how you can, get your gardens up and running. But why don't we get super into depth on how you can exit and then build out of this current system that we exist in? Because all things are pointing to, whether it's happening next week, next month, or even in 2023, things are going south quickly. And the world we knew, and I am going to say past tense, is going to continue to devolve, and the liquidation of our planet is underway. So everything's going to change in the way that we perceive money, value, trade, friendships, community. It's all shifting. So to have knowledge like this and a more integrated package on how you can get out and then how do you build these resilient communities. John, I appreciate you joining me today. So floor is yours. And I know you got the workshop coming up. What's that, Homesteading on a Budget? So yeah, let's talk about many things, because I know everybody's solution hungry right now.
Sure. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share with your audience. I've been an activist for truth, freedom, liberty for 20 years now. And in that time, I've tried all different varieties of creating freedom in my life and to help other people around me to have more freedom. We did the politics, we did the yelling at government buildings, the protests. We even had legislation passed in the state of Texas and at the city level, but it was never satisfactory. And around 2010 or so, I started exploring how creating alternative institutions could jumpstart the pursuit of freedom rather than having to wait for the public to catch up, which arguably they never will. A lot of people love their slavery and they're terrified to death at the prospect of true freedom and the responsibility that comes with it. Rather than waiting for politicians to do the right thing, what if we took the responsibility for creating freedom into our own hands? And instead of trying to end the Fed or audit the Fed, we started using alternative currencies, barter, trade networks, silver, junk silver, or for online purposes, cryptocurrency. I think that's going to be one of the best ways to overcome the central bank digital currency scheme using privacy-based cryptocurrencies. But on top of that, what can we do to get back to the land? We have all sorts of wants and needs as human beings, but chief among them perhaps is eating. And as you share on your channel, as many people are well aware, the food supply is under attack, a very deliberate attack by design with all this climate change nonsense. So what we're trying to do with Live Free Academy and this upcoming workshop, the Exit and Build Homesteading on a Budget workshop, we're trying to teach people how they can become more resilient, how they can become more self-sufficient, how they can prepare themselves for what's to come by taking small steps and big steps that are affordable, that are practical, some of them are even fun, and how they can do so in order to find more security through the crazy times. And maybe it takes longer, maybe it happens overnight. There's a lot of things we can do that will have a big impact right now. And for the folks that aren't doing them, this is more important than ever. So yeah, and the whole exit and build thing overall, it's the strategy that we convey. And the idea is Rather than fighting the system, rather than complaining, rather than going and hiding out in the woods, we want to exit those systems we find to be useless, we find to be unethical, we find to be harming us, diabolical. We want to exit those systems and build new ones. Exit the government school, create homeschool co-ops or support like-minded private schools. Exit the pharmaceutical industrial complex, engage in natural remedies, holistic modalities. Exit the big banks, exit the reliance on debt and credit cards, create local competing counter economies. And so that's really what it's all about. And I hope that this resonates with people, because the more of us that exit, or the more of us that build so we can exit, the better the future will be, and the present moment as well.
And I would follow up with that. It's easier with a group than it is out there by yourself, trying to work 18 hours a day, getting sunburnt, heat exhausted, and you only got one row of your fence done, compared to having, like the Amish do, they bring out 100 people and they build a barn, a super, gigantic whatever space in a single afternoon. Everybody's sipping tea, enjoying the company, but they do it in mass all at one time, and they can get an enormous amount of work done, because putting 100 people to work for 4 hours of just solid work is very different than trying to string that out and you finding your solid work hours with even 1 or 2 people. In mass is the way it's got to go, because so much more can be done. Even on the manual physical labor side, they're up there, with hand drills and sort of thing, and they're putting up massive barn structures in a day or under. So you can see the benefit of working together with peoples. And another food fire today, or was yesterday, you saw another factory go up here, another major processing facility. And everywhere you look across the landscape, I don't care what continent you are on, except maybe Antarctica, you're seeing something that's showing we're off the tailing end of the previous civilization / society, whatever you want to term that as. It's morphing into something else. So, talking about the problem is one thing. So you can at least know where the end result is going to take you. And then from here to there, you can dive through the minefield, if you will, because if you know what the end result is, and John, you're very versed at that, of where they want to take us at the end. So if you know what the end goal is, and we're going to be here and we're going to that end goal. So we know at least the map that the elitists are trying to put out to change our society for more control and less usage of resources. It is up to us to come out and build our own resources and utilize our own resources, take advantage and thriving during these times, because I will not sit here as a 14th century serf with one log of wood for the winter to burn and have to nibble grasses like they did during the Cultural Revolution to stay alive. That's unacceptable. We should be thriving during these times, more abundant than those that are in the cities, with fresher foods, fresher, energized spring water, fresh air, and all working together where the vibration is much higher than relying on a system that knowing that you can take the next step out and you don't have to be fearful because it's going to work when you get self-reliant. That's something hugely different than relying on a system, hoping and praying that the food will come to the supermarket. Who cares? I'm growing a massive garden enough to give away to others. So supermarket's there, maybe not. We can still hunt a little bit out here. We can fish. There's a lot of opportunities. So that fear factor is not as deep as it would be of somebody living in the city.
Yeah, without a doubt. We recently did this big summit called the Exit and Build Land Summit. The whole idea was to encourage people to exit the cities, buy land, and build community in the country. Whether they're buying a homestead and linking up with the neighbors, this guy's got the tractor, we got the chickens over here. They do the kids do the homeschool co-op on this property with the family over there. Or people come in and buy land cooperatively to experiment with this whole intentional community thing. I think for free people, those that value freedom, bodily autonomy, privacy, resiliency, the major cities are the last place that you want to be. And in fact, a lot of people recognize that. And one of the reasons why we decided to do this Homesteading on a Budget workshop is because one of the biggest limiting beliefs that I heard over and over and over was, I can't possibly afford to buy land. I can barely pay rent, right? Now there's external obstacles, those that we have no control over. And then there's internal obstacles. That's what I refer to as a limiting belief. So one of the things that we want to do is try to smash through those limiting beliefs and show people that you don't have to have a whole lot of money. You don't have to even have a whole lot of land, although it's ideal. You don't have to have a whole lot of land to become more food self-sufficient. There's all sorts of stuff to do. Now, as you said, they have laid out their blueprint. The most accurate iteration of where things are going is what's known as the Great Reset, right? The World Economic Forum's efforts to reshape government, reshape the relationship between business and individuals. And then another component of it, which is perhaps most frightening, is this fourth industrial revolution, where their stated aim is to merge biology and technology, not just human beings, but all biodiversity on Earth. In fact, Microsoft has this global supercomputer project where they want to catalog, track, trace, and analyze every single bit of biodiversity on the Earth. And they say that they have noble ends, they want equity and they want biodiversity and they want to help the economy and the environment, right? But at the end of the day, this is the oligarch class. These are folks that have been about manipulation, control, and social engineering for generations. So they've laid that out. It's important to understand that. There's a lot of folks in the freedom, truth, liberty community that's all they do. They just research till they're blue in the face, and oftentimes they start to get overwhelmed by that. There's this expression, black pill, red pills like waking up, black pills where you just get so overwhelmed you become apathetic. So I want to encourage folks, let us understand the problem, but not just for the sake of understanding the problem. Let us understand the problem so as to learn how to navigate around it, how we can insulate ourselves from it. And that's just one piece, because there's a twofold path that we're on here. On the one hand, we want to exit and build. We want to get out of the cities. We want to build resilient communities, grow our own food, pull our kids out of school. We want to do that to protect ourselves. But as you said, we want to thrive too. And I think it's more important to be on the wavelength of, let us create a better world, because we deserve a better world. We deserve systems, institutions, networks, connections, relationships that are in alignment with our nature as free, powerful, beautiful human beings. And so oftentimes people recognize that intrinsically. They just have that feeling inside of them that something's not right. And I'm caught in a rat race trap. I'm living in fear. How am I going to pay this bill? How am I going to feed my family if all this stuff comes crashing down? And so what we're trying to do is show people the way, right? And we don't claim to have all the answers, but in our own experience, we've made some drastic changes in our lives, and we made big sacrifices too. My fiance and I and my two kiddos, we lived in a 399 square foot tiny home for about a year and a half, 2 years, so we could save up for the down payment on the 10-acre homestead that we now live on. We wanted to create an intentional community. So we have 2 community members that live out with us. One of them will be teaching in the Homesteading in a Budget workshop. Also, his name's Nomad Brad. He's going to teach us how to convert tiny homes. He lives in a U-Haul that he converted in this nice luxury tiny home. So he's going to share about that. But he lives on the property free of charge. He provides so much value. We don't charge him any rent. He didn't have to pay for a 10-acre homestead, but he reaps the benefits of the homestead that we're building. In fact, he's doing a whole lot of the building. We got a chicken coop set up. We have a wicking bed garden project. That's where you have a container basically, and at the bottom there's a layer. We're using decomposed granite, and it acts as a reservoir. Then you lay some garden cloth above it, and then you put your soil and you plant your vegetables. There's a PVC pipe that goes into the reservoir, so you pour the water directly in, and it doesn't evaporate as fast. It's really good for hot climates. The roots of the plants will wick the water up into the soil. Really good system. We're going to be building 16 of those. Like I said, we got the chicken coops going on. Our home has a 11.2 kilowatt solar system with some Tesla power walls that will store like 43 kilowatt hours of electricity. So we've been very conscious about the problems that we're facing, and we're purposefully designing a life that will be able to not only weather the storm, but like you shared, thrive through the storm. And so the message I want to convey to folks is, you first got to begin with the end in mind. What kind of life do I want to live? What kind of home do I want to have? What kind of children do I want to raise? What type of wealth and abundance do I want to experience? You got to really get clear on that. Write it down even. And then you got to start laying out the strategy. What are my goals? What are my targets? What's my time frame? And what am I going to do in the present moment so as to create that life for myself in the future? But the challenge is, if you don't start getting prepared now, you're going to get caught in a reactionary cycle where you're just constantly catching up, putting out this fire. You're dependent on those systems. So if you haven't started yet on getting prepared and building this type of homesteading life, like I said before, now is a better time than ever. And there's a lot of small steps and stuff you can do that will build momentum, build that confidence, where it's only a matter of time before you turn around and you're like, wow, we've actually accomplished a lot. And I feel a lot more comfortable where we are going into this crazy future. Well, the crazy present, I should say.
Yeah, it's all around us. Now I have 23 acres out here in East Tennessee, and I have people always ask me, hey, can I buy 1 or 2 acres off you? I would love to do that, sell it. But the problem is every time you sell it, you have to have your land resurveyed. And the problem is out here, the surveyors are so chock-a-block full with all the new people coming out. They're buying hillsides, they're buying like unsellable land, using dozers to cut in to get some flat stuff to bring like single wide, double wide trailer up on the side of a mountain, just somewhere to set up, and trying to cut like a terraced mountain. These people are incredibly busy now. So to even get on their card to come out to resurvey, and you're looking at 4,000 at least for a resurvey, especially around 20 acres going up part of a mountain and then back down again in some flat. So a lot of people are going to be out there looking for those who have land. And yeah, same thing, I'll come by, I got all the skill set. Right now we're getting very large yurts that are 10-foot tall and putting them out on wooden decking platforms in different parts of the property. That way people come out, they have a place to stay, they have their own sleeping quarters and whatnot. Instead of building, wooden structures, we're trying to do something a little bit quality, glamping kind with bigger tents. So you do have that same option while something else is being built. So we're trying to do a hybridized version of that with the end goal of having, some larger wooden structures that could withstand, heavy winds and whatnot, and rain, hailstorms. But in the interim, would you not like 16-foot wide, 10-foot tall yurt that has its own decking with your own private, part of the field out there where you can't even see another person? These are some options. And this rent versus mortgage. So people might think, well, it's so expensive to buy a piece of property. But in reality, when you're looking at the mortgage compared to what you're paying for rent, I mean, they're looking at the average rental across the United States at like $2,200 a month for rent. And even if you're borrowing money at 6% or 5.5%, and everybody's screaming about the mortgage rates going up to 5.5%, well, your cost of living is rolling ahead at 9 or 12%. So to borrow it at 6 when your cost of living is going up at 12, 13, and even Shadow Stats puts it at 18% inflation, you could string that mortgage out for 30 years, then pay it off early on a reset using a couple of pieces of silver. If you're thinking in that direction on how do you get something of value now, get locked in on a really, really, really low payment, because 30 years in the future is so far out there. It's not, you can't even envision the world in 30 years from now. Pull those payments down to $500-600 a month. And then, if you got money, pay it off early, or when the reset comes, cash in some of your metals and be able to pay that note off in full. And looking at farm co-ops and farm credit, like if you're looking at a regular bank, they're going to require different things for credit scores and, tax returns and proof of income, etc. Compared to if you're in the countryside, you should be looking at farm co-ops for financing to buy countryside land, because that's what they do. They fund farmers. Compared to coming over to JP Morgan Chase or Bank of America or any of these other shysters that are out there and saying, hey, I want a non-bundled, individual loan over here. Can I get that? And well, they're not really selling farm properties. They're more neighborhood or city downtown apartment style. If that's your gig, go for them. That's great. Stay in the suburbs. But if you're really going to try to save some money, go to a farm co-op that deals with farmers all the time in countryside land. They get better rates than commercial banks do, because there's a lot of like federal issues that allow them to get lower interest rates for those who want to buy farms. And if you get a large enough piece of property, like here in Tennessee, if it's anything over 20 acres, you can register it as a green belt. And then that also knocks the interest rates down. So, when you come at it and you're getting 20 acres plus land and you're paying $600 a month for it versus, that's going through that full farm regimen to get a piece of land bought, versus what you would do with, like I say, Bank of America and go in and try to get a piece of land. It's completely different. So when you're looking at the mortgage rates versus what you're going to be paying for rentals, you're definitely going to be saving money by buying rural property for sure. Not even a question. But then again, it comes out if it's an undeveloped piece, then how do you get it developed? And that's where others come in. Can you buy something like a log cabin like we got here that was next to it? Just a lot of things, but innovative ways to save money and get you out onto the land. Because if 5 or 6 people, you'd mentioned this, John, like 5 or 6 people coming in as a co-investment to buy the land together, that's something completely different. Then you're almost no note on that. The down payment's done, and then 5 or 6 people splitting, say, $600 or $700 a month. That's nothing.
Yeah, for sure. And we've actually developed a couple of resources that help people to come together, help freedom-minded people that understand the problem to come together and to build, right? One of them is the Freedom Cell Network. This is a network of what I like to call solutionaries, people that know there's a problem, but they're focused on the solutions. There's over 33,000 of us spread out all across the globe. We just recently revamped our website, freedomcells.org. Cells is in CELLS.org. And people can go sign up there. You can use a fake name, fake email, or whatever you want to do. But once you register, you put your skills, you put if you own a land and you're looking for community members, you put if you're looking to move on to a piece of land, if you're a technologist, if you are a gardener or permaculturist, right? And then you have the opportunity to put a pin on a map. So we don't encourage you to put your home address, maybe a landmark down the street or the coffee shop in town. And you can look at the map and find that chances are, if you live in a decently populated area, there's other like-minded people there looking to connect, looking to build, looking to work together. So it's completely free to register. And we're really just trying to create our own free society, basically, where we support one another, we help one another, we build networks, we build systems, we trade, we employ. In fact, all the people that work with me here at the office, there's 3 of them that are here full time. They all met me through this network, which is pretty cool. So I really appreciate that about this network. And on top of that, this budget workshop that we're doing, we are going to talk about creative, I like to call it creative ways to buy land. Because if you're on a budget and you're strapped for cash, you're going to have to get creative, right? So when people sign up for that workshop, they're also invited to join one of our Telegram communities, the Exit and Build Land Summit community group. There's like 2,700 plus people there. And there's constantly folks saying, hey, I'm in Tennessee, for example. I love Tennessee, by the way. I'm a big Central Texas guy, selfishly, partially, because I want more people down here. But one of my next choices behind Texas is Tennessee. Good friends with this woman, Nicole Sauce. She's actually going to be teaching as part of the workshop. She has a community up there, a Freedom Cell group with like 180 people. She's in Middle Tennessee, as they call it. She's also doing this Self-Reliance Festival that's coming up that later on, I'd love to invite you to come join as a guest. It's going to be really incredible. But what we got to do is get together and find those people that will make it easier to accomplish our goals. So I want to invite everyone, when they purchase a ticket to the workshop, they'll be invited to that community group. And so it's all about, like I said before, casting that vision of where you want to go. So like we did, we decided, I already had this vision before I started dating my fiance. She had the same vision, and we were brought together. We really just empowered one another. But we knew that we wanted to own land, and we knew that we wanted to build an intentional community. At the time, when we first started dating, I had a relationship beforehand. My marriage was falling apart. That was a struggle, the whole divorce thing, crazy, crazy, crazy. But I kept my head up. I decided that I wanted to improve my life for the benefit of myself and my children. Found this woman, we started dating, we started putting our ideas and collaborating. I was struggling financially at the time. She had a great gig. She had just left a job actually, but then she had a great gig. And so we decided like, okay, let's set a goal. Let's make this happen in the next year or two. And so we started moving the pieces into place. Let's pull back on this expense here. Let's cut down on going out to eat. Let's start saving up that money and putting it in a sacred account that we're not going to spend, right? So I could get some money together to live this dream. Fast forward a couple of years, we were able to put the down payment on the property, got a great interest rate. And I'm glad you bring that up, because there's a lot of folks in our community that want to avoid the banks like the plague. But me personally, I don't mind using the bank's money if I can get it for cheap. And when you factor in getting a fixed interest rate loan of a large sum, like buying a large piece of property with a house on it, when you factor in the inflation, you're getting locked in today's dollars, but you're going to be paying that money back in future dollars. A lot of people get concerned when inflation happens, but for me, I'm like, they just printed 9 trillion more dollars. What can I do to get my hands on some of that money personally, right? When it comes to entrepreneurship and businesses, really got to help other people solve their problems. You got to provide value for other people. So I don't have a problem with the loan thing. One concern that I do have, however, is as this central bank digital currency scheme rolls out, where they're going to make the money digital, they're going to allow you to track, trace, surveil the money, and they'll even be able to limit what you can spend your money on, or perhaps, like it says in the book of Revelations, shut off your ability to do commerce altogether unless you have the mark. What is that, a digital ID, implantable chip? I don't know. So that's one concern that I do have, being locked into a mortgage, especially if it's your homestead, where you live, where you get your food. And then all of a sudden they say the mortgage has to be paid in these central bank digital currency notes, units. And in order to use these central bank digital currencies, you have to have done A, B, and C. You have to be under this monthly carbon allotment. I don't know how things are going, but one thing that I do know is I'm not going to let an unknown thing in the future, I don't know if that's going to happen fully. I don't know if it's going to be required to pay the mortgage. I'm not going to let some unknown prevent me from building a life that I love today. And unfortunately, a lot of people that follow our work and that are aware of what's going on in the world, they get caught up in their head. And I'm afraid of this. I can't do that. They'll just, Klaus Schwab said, we'll own nothing and be happy. So if I own land, then they'll just take my land, and they end up doing nothing. And like you said, if you're renting a property, you're paying out the wazoo, and you most certainly don't own the land. If you're paying rent on someone else's, you're paying someone else's mortgage. So I think it's critically important for folks to try to get some land underneath their feet. And it's my hope that we can overcome what's coming down the pike. If things do get so terrible that they're like, you have to do A, B, and C if you're going to stay on this land. That's why it's critically important that we rally together with as many people as possible. So if they come and they're like, we're taking your land because you didn't do this or that, we got 50 people there. We're like, no, you're not taking our land. We're peaceful people, but we're not going to let you take our land. I mean, this has happened in the past in history. So just encourage people to go after what they want now and not to let the fear lead to inaction, I would say.